Hello and welcome to This Week in Laker Football, your weekly exclusive look into the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside West Bloomfield Lakers head varsity football coach Zach Hilbers. The Lakers coming off a 21-20 thrilling victory on Friday night in the regional finals against the Clarkston Wolves. Coach, let's start from the beginning. Clarkston gets the ball off the kickoff. And they immediately get to work a few minutes into the game. They take about half of the first quarter. They get on the board, and then they come back around and get a kickoff return, short kickoff, a great bounce, and they get the ball back and score basically within the next couple of plays. Early on in the game, down 13-0. Where was your head at as the head coach to get your team back on to more traditional Laker football early on in that game with things getting out of hand?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was less than ideal the way the game started. We knew that their big-time players were going to make plays. I think we talked about that like a week ago here, and then they really did. I mean, they scored their first 3 touchdowns, and they continued to make plays throughout the game. But, you know, with the way the game started, they had a good drive, like you mentioned, but they converted 3 or 4 third downs. Like, we just got to get one of those and get off the field. You know, then we screwed up the kick return. We made some mistakes and recovered it, and they scored on a trick play. Really well timed and well executed, but avoidable if we do our job. So even like when it got to 20-0, it was like, you know what, like we're right there. Like we're this close. We just got to execute and just finish the job and do the deal. So we kind of said like just trust the stuff, stick to it, and we can claw our way back into it.
That's not unfamiliar territory for your team either. You had a similar deal back in Week 6 when you were on the road in Clarkston against the Wolves. So having been in that position against this team, having had that previous comeback against the Wolves late in that game back in Week 6, did that help getting your team back focused and thinking about the comeback more than the situation they were in?
Yeah, I think so, because, it gave us at least confidence that we could move the ball, we could score. It just wasn't going to come easy. It's playoff football. It doesn't work that way. Even right down to the point of, in Week 6, we were down there out of halftime, down a score, drove the ball inside their 5, 4th and 1, got stuffed. And I think their first play was a 50 or 60-yard run. And just, bam, flipped the field. And, something pretty similar happened on Friday night. It's a 4th and 1, 4th and 2. We don't get it, but we're backed up. But this time our defense stood up. We got the ball back, great field position, and we were able to score.
Down 20-0 after that 94-yard Desmond Stevens touchdown. And even seeing visuals of the sideline when you're down 20-0, it looked like the team was still very much focused. The body language was not, we're down 20-0 in a playoff game against a team that just beat an undefeated Lake Orion team. Yeah. What was that sideline environment like, particularly with your upperclassmen who have been here in these situations before?
Well, that's really what it comes down to is the senior leadership. They helped us kind of like keep it level and steady and knew that like, hey, we can still do this. We can get the job done. Like, we're okay. This game's not over. There's a lot of time left. The bad thing about falling down 20-0 early is you're down 20-0. The good thing is that it's early, is that there's a lot of time left. And if we just take care of our business, that we could come back. Luckily, we were able to.
You get to around 20 minutes into that game. Later on in the second quarter, you finally get on the board, and it's now a 20-7 game approaching halftime. That's where it was ultimately at the half, 20-7 in favor of Clarkston. Getting that first score, was that one of those points where the tide started to turn and your team started to really seem to believe and play like, we're going to win this?
Yeah, it definitely helped, because as much time as you might have early in the game, if you don't get on the board, it looks, steeper and steeper, like it's the hill that you got to climb. So that definitely helped, and we knew we were getting the ball back after halftime, so at least that was an opportunity to come back. And, between scoring and getting on the board and our defense really stepping up and playing well, like we thought we had a chance.
West Bloomfield Lakers won the regional final game ultimately 21-20 on Friday night, setting them up for the state semifinals Saturday on the road at Troy High School, a neutral location for another rematch between the Lakers and this time Southfield A&T for a chance to play at Ford Field. So going on to that second half, you come out after being down 20-7, Lakers get the football to start half number 2, and it did look, especially offensively, like a different Lakers team in that second half. He finally got some things to work. So what sort of adjustments were made or discussed at halftime in terms of the approach offensively to the second half and how your team was going to continue to inch back against these Wolves?
I guess what we talked about was really just sticking to what we planned for all week, because sometimes you get down early like that, you might have a tendency to think like, oh shoot, we got to come back, and start, hurrying, and we didn't want to do that. We wanted to trust what we thought was going to work. So we stuck to it, and, part of that was why it took us so long to come back into the game. We didn't want to hurry and panic, but it ultimately worked. Like the stuff that we thought we would have, we had, and we were able to take advantage of some opportunities ahead of us.
Yeah, Clarkston early on, they were able to get some pressure on your team in the backfield and somewhat shut down the running game or force more into a passing situation than maybe you intended to have early on in that football game. But then in that second half, that rushing game really opened up big time with multiple playmakers, Cam Flowers, Nigel Dunton getting involved. Rick Nance had 80 yards on the ground too. What were the keys to your rushing game, particularly in the second half, that really helped to open up a more balanced offensive attack?
I guess it's the variety that we can do. We can run, we like to try to run wide, both sides of the field, stretch you horizontally, and then Nigel and Brandon are so good at running straight downhill vertically that, even though you're running the ball, you're making the defense cover a lot of space. Like, that's our goal, to just put pressure on them in a lot of different ways. So that opened some things up, and, we actually had a few turnovers that made it a little bit harder. We thought we were moving the ball, but kind of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit, but, kind of got out of our way and made some stuff happen.
Yeah, on that note, 2 interceptions in that game for Rick Nance, uncharacteristic for him on the season. Still just 7 interceptions total throughout the 12 games so far this year. But what was great about those situations, was your team's reaction to it seemed to be all business, as it was all game long. Nobody seemed to be getting down on themselves for plays or drives that didn't go in their favor. Right. What sort of factor did that motivation play into later portions of the game when it's still a close game, it's still within your reach, but you got to get over that hump?
Yeah, you definitely have to. Eventually, you have to go step up and make the play. You got time. Let's not panic. But if you don't get the job done, you don't get it done. So we were able to kind of stay the course with that. And I think both the interceptions were on 4th down, where we tell him, like, you have to throw the ball. Like, if you can't take a sack there, you got to at least get a chance to put it in the air. And he did that. And their kids made some plays on the ball. So I mean, that's going to happen. I guess solution is to kind of stay out of 4th down and try to pick the 1st down up a little bit earlier. But yeah, I think that went into like the kids believing that we could still get the job done. Is that they saw the success that we were having. It just wasn't immediate success, and sometimes life's like that.
West Bloomfield head coach Zach Hilbers is with us on This Week in Laker Football. The Lakers going to the semifinals on Saturday, a 1 o'clock kickoff against the Southfield A&T Warriors. We'll do our best to cover that game on TV and on the radio, maybe one or the other. Stay tuned on civiccentertv.com/Lakersports for updated information on broadcasts for the semifinal game. What was also key, especially in the second half, was after spotting Clarkston 20 points, they didn't get back on the board again. Your defense was excellent, and especially that defensive attack in the front 7 in the second half, really putting Brady Collins under pressure, but also answering back from week 6 and effectively shutting down the Bowman brothers. Yeah,
we really tried to focus on how they kind of gashed us the first time around. We're going to try to take away what they do best, and that's really hard to do because they're good and they move their pieces around. They do such a good job moving their pieces around, getting their guys the ball. But that was our focus. Our guys stepped up. Jameer Benjamin, Bryce Rowe played great. Brandon Davis-Swain was great. The linebackers, I told Blake Simmons and Brody that was like the best game that I've seen them play all year, and it was a good time for it because we needed it.
Yeah, Blake Simmons in on some assisted tackles, including a big one on Brady Collins, assisted with Jaden Allos, and Brody Peaker also had an excellent game at the second level for the Lakers. It was really well executed on the defensive side, especially late, and that played a big factor, especially considering, as you mentioned, those 4th downs really were critical throughout the game. You had a 4th down that didn't go your way in the red zone, pinned Clarkston back deep, and your defense kept them there and got the football back. And then that final offensive drive for the Lakers, they're marching up the field. You're taking time off the clock. You get another 4th down, and Rick Nance just happens to get the tiniest of holes in that offensive line. Talk about that offensive line making abilities for these guys that are typically better outside runners like Nance, like Flowers, and like Marquise Morris, but in this case, giving them exactly what he needed to make a big play in crunch time.
Well, we got 2 sophomores up there on the O-line that have started all year. So when you have that, you should see some improvement throughout the year, and it's been drastic. Like, they've gotten so much better. They're so much more confident now, and really the whole group has gotten better. And sometimes that happens on 4th and short. If we block it up right, you hit a crease because the line gets so crowded that you can kind of pop one and go. And luckily, Rick found the right spot, and he's a good enough player. Made one, kind of slipped one tackle and was just gone.
Yeah, and then from there you have about 2.5 minutes or so left in the ball game. Now Clarkston's getting the ball back, so it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you finally have gotten a lead, your first lead of the game, 21-20. On the other side, Clarkston's got all their timeouts remaining. They've got 2.5 minutes to march up the field, and at the very least, potentially have an opportunity to win that game in the last seconds. And then it comes down to that. Ultimately, they get down the field, they get a couple of late runs, time is expiring, and a timeout is called with 2 seconds left. In that moment, take us through that with your kids on the sideline, both after the timeout and then after your timeout before ultimately Eddie Langton made that kick.
Well, there was some confusion because the scoreboard, the clock ran down to 0, but I saw their coach call timeout. I knew he was calling timeout. I wasn't going to let it go. So that was never in question, I guess. I knew that they were getting another play off, and I called timeout just to make sure we were doing exactly what we wanted to do. It was a less than ideal situation for us. They had a pretty good field position, obviously, but if we're going to go down, we're going to make sure we're all on the same page and we know what we're doing. And luckily, we got the guys in the right spot, and some of them stepped up and really made the huge play at the end.
Yeah, special teams attack on those extra points and on field goals throughout the game had been there, just hadn't gotten past that point, but it did at the perfect time. The Lakers took home the victory 21-20 over Clarkston and qualified in doing so for the state semifinals on Saturday at Troy High School against Southfield A&T. Coach, your final takeaways from that incredible victory on Friday night against Clarkston, the jubilation that came from coming back from down 20 points and ultimately qualifying in one of the final 4 teams in the playoffs in the MHSAA's Division 1.
Well, what we told the kids each week, all that matters is that you just win and that you're able to play the next week. So it didn't go according to our plan or our script or any of us wanted it, but we did enough to win and get one more week. We knew their big players would step up, and they did. They made it really hard and difficult on us, but we're still here, and we got one more week of practice and at least one more game, and we really hope it's 2.
And that's now 3 rivalry games, 3 rematches for the Lakers in these playoffs. Coming up on Saturday, they'll play another familiar foe, Southfield A&T, this time in a neutral location at Troy High School. And on Saturday at 1 o'clock, the winner of that game goes to Ford Field on Thanksgiving weekend. We'll talk more about that matchup in just a little bit. Stay with us. This Week in Laker Football returns next on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Snap. Kick is up. It is blocked. It is over! This one is over! Jameer Benjamin has the football! And this time, when it is over, it is all the way over!
This is Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. On cable and the radio. On the web too, and on social media. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home. Take a break and tune in to the Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Join Tyler Keefe and Diane Chabon as they go through headlines, events, and update you on the day-to-day in Oakland County. Catch us live weekdays 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Watch us on demand at civiccentertv.com. Or watch us on TV at Comcast Channel 15 or AT&T at Channel 99.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football, your weekly exclusive look into West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm Tyler Keefe, joined now by West Bloomfield Lakers offensive coordinator Ken Rys, and kind of coming off a 21-20 victory over Clarkston, 3 weeks into these playoffs and 3 very competitive games, especially last week. But it's kind of been indicative of the growth of this team over the course of the season, that resilience we saw on Friday from the offensive side, starting off a little bit slow against Clarkston, but then really picking it up. What was the difference maker on Friday for your offense?
We never panicked. We got down. It was 13-0 before we even touched the ball, and we got it back through a pick on their one, so it was effectively like a good punt. But anyhow, we got back 7 points a quarter after that first quarter, and the last 7 is when we needed it. So I wouldn't say we did anything different. We just kind of trusted the game plan and finished it when it counted.
What's been great about this team's offense is it has been so balanced over the course of the season. Starting off the first few weeks, it was very pass heavy, and then in the middle of the season became more run heavy. Now we're sort of seeing that across the board. And it's a younger team too, so how has development played into the way that you've been able to manipulate the way you game plan week in and week out on the offensive side?
Well, we knew after week 1 when we ran the ball for 40 yards against Chippewa Valley, that was not going to get it done in the playoffs. And then against Lake Orion, the game we lost, we ran for 19 yards. So that's not playoff football in Michigan. So we dedicated ourselves to the run, and last couple weeks we ran for 200-plus yards. So it's been like a focus, a dedication, and our young offensive linemen got older. They grew. Our tackles are sophomores. They played like sophomores early on in the year. Now they're playing like, experienced juniors. So.
Yeah, they created some great holes on Friday, especially that last touchdown for Rick Nance. 4th and 1, they opened up just enough space for him to get up the gut on that draw play and take it all the way home. Talked about the work that they have put in, these sophomores, these underclassmen on the offensive line. They had big shoes to fill, a lot of pressure on their hands for this season, and they've stepped up.
Yeah, when all the offensive linemen have worked hard, just the sophomores had more room to grow. And that's what you see when you're young and inexperienced and your technique's not there. It shows. But now they've had a season under their belts, and they're doing a good job, both pass blocking and run blocking. So, it's just one of those things where they kind of bought into the system, they believed in it, and we believe in them. So we're going to keep on doing what we got to do to win these games.
For coaching, from a coaching perspective, there's so much talent on this offensive side, from quarterback Rick Nance, a 3-year starter, to all these different backs that you can use as runners and you can use in the passing game as well. Speak to the versatility of your skill position players and how that helps you prepare week in and week out for a variety of different teams at various competitive levels.
We know going into each week that teams are going to try to take away something. They're going to take away our jet sweep, our vertical pass game, our inside run, our quarterback draws, but they can't take away everything. All right, so a lot of our in-game play calling is what are they going to give us? You want to take away the jet, we'll run inside. You want to play up, we'll throw it over top of you. You want to play deep, we'll hit you with the quick game. So it's one of those things where we have the luxury of being versatile so that we can do what we want when the defense takes away, what they choose to.
Earlier this season, Coach Hilbers had talked about one of the adjustments the team had made really across the board was simplifying things, simplifying assignments, simplifying nomenclature out on the field so that the players could just go out there and execute. From the offensive side, what did change within that ultimately led to a second half of the season where the offense has been firing all across the board and playing really well-balanced football?
Well, I think our offensive system is relatively simple. We do the same plays out of many formations. And our kids understand what we're trying to do, especially our quarterback. Our quarterback can make those, in-play adjustments that are needed when things aren't what they look like. So, some of it, looks improvised and some of it is. But a lot of it's just because, our quarterback has been playing in the system for really 4 years. When he was a freshman, he was up here as well. And he just is a leader on that field, and we got guys that can block, guys who can run. It's a nice thing to have.
What are you looking forward to seeing improve this week, and what else needs to continue to take a step forward for your team, not only to be successful this week Saturday against Southfield A&T, but ideally also in the state championship game?
Well, the last 2 weeks we haven't finished drives. We had 3 turnovers against Clarkston, usually 3 turnovers in that round of the playoffs, you're out. So we were fortunate to, get away with that. Against Eisenhower, we had 2 or 3 times we were inside, their 30 where we didn't cross the goal line. So luckily in those situations, our defense stepped up and got us the ball back. So our goal is to score every possession, but realistically, at a bare minimum, we want to flip the field. When we get the ball inside their 30, we want to come away with some points, whether it be a field goal, a touchdown, but just keep on executing so that we can, come out on top, whether it be a 1 point or 40 points. We don't care.
Coach, appreciate you joining us as the Lakers offense has been fantastic all throughout the season, averaging over 200 yards per game on the offensive side, passing, and over 150 yards rushing. That's going to play a big impact on Saturday against the Southfield A&T Warriors in state semis. We'll take a break on This Week in Laker Football. On the other side, Coach Hilbers will rejoin us, and we'll preview this weekend's semifinal matchup. You're watching and listening to This Week in Laker Football on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Inches to go. Nance lined up in the shotgun. Brandon Davis, Swain, and Nigel Dunton with him. Hard count. Snap, handoff, Dunton. Quarterback draw. Nance has space. He's going all the way. Touchdown, WB. the quarterback into the end zone, and the Lakers have the lead.
Missed one of our live broadcasts or one of your local municipal meetings? Check it out online at civiccentertv.com. Every meeting, show, and interview on demand. Thank you for watching and listening to Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Looking for a score, a schedule, a story? MHSAA.com has you covered. Our newly redesigned website has everything you need to follow high school sports in Michigan. And it's optimized for mobile use. Fans can submit scores on a Friday night, check playoff pairings and game times, or read about the student athletes from your community. Your first stop is MHSAA.com. Connect with us online and get everything you need all in one place.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football, your weekly exclusive look into the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team all across the season and all across the playoffs. The Lakers coming off a 21-20 victory in the semifinals. In the regional finals. That sets them up for the state semifinals on Saturday against Southfield A&T. Tyler Keefe from Civic Center TV alongside Zach Hilbers, the West Bloomfield Lakers head coach. And now for the third time in these playoffs, you're going up against a team that you've seen already this season and they've seen you. But this one might be the biggest of all of them because, like we talked about just a few weeks ago, just 5 weeks ago before that Southfield A&T game, it is a rivalry game with some very personal connections for these kids. And this time around, it's not just for regular season bragging rights. It's for everything.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's normally an emotional and intense game, and I think the situation is only going to amplify that. So I know it's going to be a tough week. They're really talented. They're a good group, and it means a lot to a lot of kids here. So, that's a recipe for what we hope is a good football game.
Yeah, you know what it's like to go into a game having taken a tough loss from a rival and wanting to get that revenge at the perfect time in the playoffs with everything on the line. What are you expecting from Southfield A&T in their own right with a very talented team going up against you at Troy High School on Saturday afternoon?
What we told the kids in the meeting is that they're doing exactly what we did last week. We lost to Clarkston in week 6. We got another shot at them, and I told them that I promise you, if you told Clarkston they're going to win one and lose one, they would have flipped it and lost the regular season and won the playoffs. So that's the exact situation Southfield's in right now. So we beat them in week 8. We should have the confidence that we can get the job done. It's not an impossible task, but other than that, it means absolutely nothing because if we don't get the job done, they're going to be happy and we're going to be sad.
It's been it's back in week 8. It's now week 13. It's been 5 weeks since that matchup, but for your team and certainly for Southfield A&T, a lot has changed over those past 5 weeks. What's different about your team today than it was going into that week 8 matchup?
I guess we have a little bit more established system that we've been running. We kind of revamped some things middle of the year, and the Southfield game kind of gave us the initial confidence that it could work, and now that we've seen it, work week after week, that we think that we can get the job done. If we play good, clean football, at least we have the opportunity to. On their side of the ball, they're running a little bit more. The quarterback's obviously a great player, and the receivers have got guys all over that can run all over the place. So it's a unique challenge going against them.
The unique challenge, too, about this time of the year in the MHSAA playoffs is it really does test the fortitude and the malleability of a team because now you're playing on a Saturday. You're playing earlier on in the afternoon. You got that extra day of preparation, but that extra day also to be thinking about that ball game before you go into it and in a higher pressure situation. So how do you help your team adjust to you're playing a day later, you're playing at an unfamiliar location. It's a lot like a road game in that sense, but it's for everything also.
Yeah, the location doesn't mean as much, at least to me personally, just because, we played a neutral game week 1 against a really good opponent, and, we were lucky enough to win. But I guess all the other stuff, when it comes down to it, it's a semifinal game. You can't expect things to be easy or handed to you. It's going to be difficult. You're going to play a good team, and you're going to have to do your job. So, we had to kind of change the calendar a little bit. Like you mentioned, you got an extra day, which is a good thing, but you got to use it right. You don't want to be, kind of stagnant. One of the things we've been fortunate with is that, we got a pretty good rhythm and I guess system. The kids know what we're doing each day, and it's kind of planned out pretty regularly. And this throws a little bit of a wrench in that. So it's on us to make sure with that bonus day that we utilize it, make sure that we're getting better and not stagnant.
The Lakers taking on Southfield A&T on Saturday, 1 o'clock kickoff at Troy High School at a neutral location. The winner of that game goes to Ford Field on the Sunday after Thanksgiving for the MHSAA Division I state championship game. And Southfield's been battle-tested in their own right, even in these playoffs, going up against Cass Tech earlier on in the playoffs last week, playing against another familiar opponent to the Lakers in Clinton Township, Chippewa Valley, and both of those games, astounding victories for the Warriors. So you're coming in battle-tested. They're coming in battle-tested. What are you expecting from your team in terms of their preparation this week, in terms of the way they're executing on the field on Saturday in order to be able to play competitive football, much like they have over these past 3 weeks, but even at a higher level now?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely look better than they did 5 weeks ago, and that's not to say they didn't look good 5 weeks ago. Like they had a really good regular season as well, but they're just a lot more balanced on offense. On defense, they're flying around, making stuff happen. They held, Cass and Chip down really well defensively. They're making plays all over the place, and you kind of come to expect that with their offense and how prolific they are. But it's really been both sides of the ball.
The Lakers are taking on Southfield A&T on Saturday. We'll keep you up to date on our potential coverage of that game on TV and radio on our website, civiccentertv.com/Lakersports. Most likely, if we are going to have the game on the television side, it'll be on Comcast Channel 19 and AT&T Channel 99. Those are the West Bloomfield School District's TV channels, as well as on 89.3 Lakes FM. Again, stay tuned to our social media as well as our website at civiccentertv.com for more information. Coach, as you approach Saturday's game and the rest of this week in preparation, what are some of the key points you're really trying to get through to your kids as they get ready for a rematch with Southfield A&T?
The key points would be really just no mistakes, either side of the football. We made some last week, which got us into a hole, and we climbed out of it. We got ourselves one more week, but, you never know when a mistake like that's going to sink you, and that could be it. It's over, and it's everything. So we got to be a little bit cleaner, kind of take care of, our business and just, really focus on what our assignment is, what we're supposed to do, and do that to the best of our ability. Because, at this point of the year, there shouldn't be any question about motivation or focus or anything like that. It's just about doing your job and doing it as best you can.
2 more games away from a state championship for the West Bloomfield Lakers, but it all starts on Saturday against Southfield A&T. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock at Troy High School. And of course, we'll do our best to have our broadcast for you on Saturday of that game in whatever way we possibly can. CivicCenterTV.com for more information. Coach, anything else before we let you go and have your team get ready for Saturday's game?
I just hope we're here next week doing the same thing. That's it, yeah.
We'll look forward to that, a Thanksgiving week special edition of This Week in Laker Football on Monday, hopefully getting ready for a state championship game on Sunday, a week from there. For our entire team at Civic Center TV and the team at the West Bloomfield High School Athletics Department, I'm Tyler Keefe, thanking you for tuning in to This Week in Laker Football.